Here to discuss the most important issue is one of our own, Indivisible's own, Dr. Lydia Ray. She earned her PhD degree in computer science from Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge in 2005 and joined the Faculty of Computer Science at Columbus State University in 2006. Cybersecurity is one of the main areas of interest of Lydia Ray. She's a certified digital forensic investigator and certified ethical hacker. Currently, she is working on a project on raising cybersecurity awareness and building a cyberware culture. She is very interested in U.S. politics and the impact on cybersecurity on U.S. politics. Please welcome Dr. Lydia Ray.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks to Caroline and thanks to Indivisible for giving me the opportunity to share with you what has been worrying me for many months now. I am really glad to share with you what I have learned. Before I start to talk, I want to tell you a few things. Number one, I am not a native English speaker, and I have a different accent. So if you don't understand anything, just raise your hand and ask me. I will be happy to explain it to you again. Number two, if anytime you have any question, just raise your hand, stop me and ask me, and I will rather have it as a discussion rather than a dry talk. That's number two. And number three, the focus of my talk is to understand why cybersecurity is important for US democracy. This is not a political talk, and I'm not going to focus on any party or anything. This is irrespective of any party affiliation. This is a non-partisan issue, and we need to be aware of it, every one of us. My talk has two parts. In the first part, I'm going to describe what has already happened, how cyber attacks influenced our election, and in the second part, I'm going to talk about how prepared we are for midterm, what have we learned, and what we can do to use those lessons to secure our elections in 2018 midterm and again in 2020. Okay, so let me start. So last year, I joined a panel discussion in Atlanta on cybersecurity, and I was one of the panelists, but there were four other panelists who were from industry. They were CEOs or CIOs from different businesses. And the first question the facilitator asked us was, what keeps you awake in the middle of the night about cybersecurity? And the other panelists, they started talking about, financial loss, company goodwill, data breach. That's the main concern of the business. And when I thought about it, the thing that immediately came to my mind was 2016 election hack. And I thought the election process, this is the backbone of the democracy of United States. If the election process is damaged or broken, and if people lose faith in a fair election process, then the democracy will be impacted very negatively, and that will impact everything else. Also, it is easy to recover from financial loss, but it will be much difficult to recover from this damage if people lose their faith in the US electoral process. A broken electoral process is equivalent to broken democracy. That's why cybersecurity is so important. So what did Russians achieve? Well, there is no doubt, after the two indictments published by Robert Mueller, there is no doubt that Russians did this. Okay, there is plenty of evidence that the American intelligence officials collected. what did they do? What did they achieve? They sowed doubts about the fairness of US election. They helped undermine public faith in US democratic process. They definitely chose to help Trump, to increase candidate Trump's chances of victory, and they definitely wanted to harm Secretary Clinton's electability. How much they have, how successful they are, that's something to debate about, and I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to focus on how they did it, okay? Cyberwar, we are not aware about it yet, but cyber war zones have been there in existence for quite a few years. And there are many nation-state actors involved. United States, Russia, Iran, United Kingdom, China, North Korea, they are all, trying to launch cyber espionage, to hack into different countries' computer systems, to collect, steal important data. So it has been there for quite a while. Wasn't America prepared for what happened in 2016 election? I have been teaching cybersecurity since 2006, ever since I joined Columbus State University. And we are talking about cyber warfare and cybersecurity as part of national security. And our focus was always on the critical infrastructures. We thought, there were two things that we focused on. One was cyber espionage. So other countries could hack into our important systems and steal important data. That's number one. And the number two is they can destroy the critical infrastructures of this country by hacking into computers. Back in the days when our society was not so digitized, cyber espionage was the only threat. But as our society started to get more and more digitized, that means more and more important systems started to get connected to the internet. That's when this threat came up that people can hack into computers and they can change many things into critical infrastructures and can cause devastating damage. So what we anticipated from history were these things. Denial of service attacks. Denial of service attacks means the enemy can send a bunch of fake, bogus requests, so many number that ultimately the systems will not be able to respond and will shut down. So we will not be able to access important websites, okay? So that's called denial of service attack. Ransomware attack to shut down critical systems, and you perhaps know that one such attack happened, I think this year in Atlanta, and it was a mess. Then hacking and changing programs to make critical systems malfunction, and although it has not happened in US, but in Australia, back in, I think 2002, they had this water sewage system. One employee who was fired from the company, he wanted to take revenge and he hacked the computers and he changed the program in such a way that the dirty water came out from all types of pipes in Australia, creating huge damage to the environment and to people, and so it was another mess. And then finally cyber espionage. So all these cyberware things were anticipated. Now Russia has already used some of these cyberware techniques in other countries. The first cyberware attack that Russia launched was in 2007 against Estonia. Do you remember that attack? Have you heard about it? So in Estonia, they had some Soviet Red Army statue that Estonian government wanted to place somewhere else, in a less prominent place, and Soviet people got mad. I mean Russian, not Soviet, but they got mad and they decided to. They started to spread fake news. They said Estonian government was trying to destroy those statues. Okay, and then they started this denial of service attack, and they shut down Estonian government's websites and systems. They shut down the banking systems. They shut down every critical system that was, they shut down the news agencies, so people didn't get any news, they didn't get any update, they could not have any money transaction, the government couldn't take any decision because all those systems were not working. So Russia did this in 2007. Another thing, because of their spread of fake news, there was a riot in Estonia. And as a result of this riot, thousands of people were injured. One person was dead. And so I knew about this incident. And when I taught about this incident in my class, I always focused on the denial of service attack and the technical aspect of that. But I never thought how powerful this fake news can be and how it can disrupt the ordinary citizen's life. In 2008, Russia again launched a similar cyber attack against Georgia. I mean, not this Georgia, but Georgia, which was a part of Soviet Union before. A similar type of attack. And then again in 2015 and 2016, Russia launched 2 other attacks against Ukraine. In 2015, during the winter, you know how hard winter is there. So Russian hackers hacked their power grid computer system, and almost half of Ukraine was without power for several days in that winter. Okay, so that's one example of how cyber attack can damage ordinary citizens' life by doing simple things like hacking. Hacking is really simple. So we know all of this, we knew all of this, and we were kind of at least mentally prepared for this type of attacks, but Russia chose to take a totally different strategy for 2016 election, and that was unprecedented. Their campaign to disrupt 2016 election was multifaceted, very carefully planned, and there is enough evidence that it was approved by the highest authority of Russian government. Their methods can be divided into 3 different techniques: online propaganda, hack and leak, and compromising state election systems. The hack and leak. So how many of you know how Secretary John Podesta's email account was hacked? You know? Okay. Okay, you know. So they launched what is called a spear phishing attack. Spear phishing attack is a very carefully crafted phishing attack where someone poses as somebody that you trust and then sends an email either with a malware attached or with a link that is connected to a server that is controlled by them, the attackers. Okay. So if you look at that email at the top, this is the email that John Podesta got, and not just John Podesta. Many officials, I think about 300 people, got the same type of spear phishing attack during around February or March of 2016. This email looks like it came from Google. It says, "Hi John, someone just used your password to try to sign into your Google account." They gave John's Google Gmail account ID. They gave the details and they said, "Someone from Ukraine." This is just crazy. Google stopped this sign-in attempt. You should change your password immediately, and then they give this link, change password. Okay. Now, if you get such an email, if you put your cursor on this link, you will see the actual URL down at the bottom of your browser. And you can verify whether it is really from Google or not. But unfortunately, those DNC officials, they had no idea that this was so simple. So John Podesta somehow, he was suspicious and he sent that email, he forwarded that email to his IT people, and then they did some research. Then he got an email back from Charles Delavan. He is one of his IT employees. He wrote, this is a legitimate email. John needs to change his password immediately and ensure that two-factor authentication is turned on his account. He can go to the link, and he gave the actual link. This is myaccount.google.com/security. That is the actual link to change your Google ID or password. But this one was not the actual link. This link would actually take John's password and username to someone else, okay, the attackers. But anyway, when John got this email from Charles, he read the first part, so he thought he needs to change his username and password, but he did not use this link. Instead, he used the original link. And within few seconds, his username and password went to the Russian hackers. And they got all his emails and they decided to leak it. They gave it to WikiLeaks. And you know what happened then. The interesting thing is that not just he did it. There were many other people. One DNC official called William Reinhardt. Do you know his name? He also did the same thing. He was in Hawaii and he got the same email and he changed his username and password. So my guess is that there were many people whose username and password were collected by the Russian hackers. Now, this attack is very simple to launch. Every semester I teach my students how to create this type of email, the same logo. It just takes few minutes. There is a tool, there is an operating system called Kali Linux. It is free, and it comes with a social engineering toolkit where all you have to do is just choose what you want to do. Choose what template you want to use. Google. It will create this Google email template. And then you can craft the body of the email and you send it, you give the address. So in order to send this type of spear phishing email attacks, the attackers, all they need to know is the email ID of their victims. And it is easily available in the internet. We all give our email addresses in the internet, so it's easily available. And it is a very simple, very cheap attack to launch. And we were victim of this just because there was not enough awareness about cybersecurity. People didn't know. And I was surprised that John didn't know, John Podesta, because I read that he wrote, he did some work on cybersecurity and he wrote a report on US cybersecurity and privacy for President Obama in 2015. Yet he couldn't understand this. So, well, I obtained all this information from Robert Mueller's second indictment that came up in July. He gave a detailed description of what has happened. It's very interesting. If you have time, you can read. I will not go through those stories, but he got evidence that this hack, this March 2016 hack, was linked to GRU, the Military Intelligence Service of Russia, and the leakers were DCLeaks and Guccifer 2.0. This guy, actually Guccifer 2.0 is a Romanian lone hacker, but the Russians, they tried to show that this leak was done by just one single hacker and not by Russia, so they tried to pose as Guccifer 2.0 and they tried to post some things in Twitter. before March 2016, they compromised DNC system in July 2015. It was not GRU though, but it was some other Russian hacker group. It's called Dukes. They compromised the DNC systems, and during September of 2015, one DNC official, the help desk person, he got a call from FBI special agent that your computer has been compromised. He didn't know what to do. He was not trained in cybersecurity. He didn't have any training to deal with cybersecurity attacks. So he used the regular software that's available in the market to scan the computers, and he didn't find anything. So he ignored the call from special agent of FBI. And he did not pay any attention to those attacks until they got to know that this John Podesta's email account has been hacked. So there was a story in New York Times. They interviewed a lot of officials in DNC and DCCC, the sister organization of DNC, and Obama administration employees, and they got to know the whole story. I'm not going to go into details because it will take a lot of time, but what I want to say is that when I read this, I understood that because of lack of knowledge about cybersecurity, they could not deal with it successfully. If they were aware what was going to happen, it could be prevented. What happened in 2016 could have been easily prevented. But there were many clues, many missed signals, many mishandlings, and we don't want that to happen again. The other thing is that media played as a de facto instrument of Russian intelligence, because when Podesta's email was hacked, media just, they spread that news. Every time the emails were out there, they published it, and people just read it like crazy. And I don't think many people even read the details of the emails. I did, because I tried to find out what was there in those emails. That would, I was trying to understand the harmful side, the negative sides of Secretary Clinton. So that's why I read many of those emails, and I could not really discover anything that I already didn't know. But just the fact that it was hacked emails, and it was about something about Goldman Sachs and Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and DNC, people thought this is too bad. And the more the media published, the more it played negatively in people's mind. Robert Mueller's first indictment that came out last year in October of 2017, that details the online propaganda part. And that is the part that made my head reeling. So they had a huge, elaborate plan, which started at least in 2014. They created servers in the United States to be used to mask their attacks. You have heard about Internet Research Agency, or IRA. IRA is an organization affiliated with Russian government. It is in St. Petersburg, and it started operating on US election from 2014. What did they do? They created fake US personalities. They created fake Facebook profiles of US people. They posed as US people. They created fake thematic Facebook pages. They did online trolling. They they stole US people's social security number and address and other things to create a digital payment account, PayPal account, to buy Facebook ads. And then yes.
Could this be related to that server that was on the Trump Towers that was sending something to Alpha Bank, and they were kind of pinging like short bursts of information?
I don't know that. It was not written in the indictment. What I'm saying here is based on what Robert Mueller wrote in his report, but he did not mention whether this server was located at Trump Tower. I believe it was not. It was somewhere else.
There is some news out there that there was some kind of server communicating with something in Alpha Bank in Russia, and they were kind of sending like bursts of information, like really short with data, but they couldn't figure out what exactly.
It is possible. It is possible that it was linked to Russia, and I hope that American intelligence officials will be able to figure it out if they have not done it already. Yeah. So the Russians' goal for this online propaganda was to influence people's opinions in US about the candidates. It is crazy what they did. They created a fake Black Lives Matter group, and they created some real US people joined in that fake Black Lives Matter group, and that group was people in St. Petersburg, in that internet research agency, they worked day and night to create this fake to create this impression that this is a real Black Lives group, Black Lives Matter group, and they even created some rallies and protests in the United States. One event was significant because after Philando Castile's death in Minnesota, they tried to create a local rally. But then the local Black Lives Matter group leaders, when they found out about that rally, they started talking about it, but they couldn't find anybody, any local leader who organized it. They got suspicious and they started communicating with the admins of that Facebook page, and those admins could not give any satisfactory answer about who organized this and what they are going to do. So these real local leaders, they were so suspicious that they said they are going to go to the police. But then those admins of the fake page, they actually cancelled the event, and they just erased everything. At that time, it didn't come to anybody's mind that this could be linked to Russia, but after we got Robert Mueller's indictment, where it's clearly written how they have created these fake activist groups to influence American people, then it is clear we can link those things. So another important thing is that those fake Black Lives Matter group, they tried to tell the African American people not to vote. They said, we don't want to go for the lesser evil. Yes, we know Trump is bad, but Hillary is also bad. Don't go vote. And this way they tried to suppress black votes. They put a lot of ads. So one University of Wisconsin-Madison professor of journalism, she was doing some research on the ads on the election in 2016, and she collected a lot of Facebook ads, and she did research on those ads, and she found out that she studied about 228 groups that posted Facebook ads on election, and she found out that about half of those 228 groups were not trackable in federal records or online or any way. Later, many of those, in fact most of those groups that were not trackable were found to be linked to Internet Research Agency, IRA. So those ads, most of those ads were like this. These are some of the example ads. So the ads that were against Hillary Clinton and pro-Trump, most of those ads were connected, were linked to those agencies that did not have any federal record. And later they were linked to Russia, I mean IRA. So these are some of those ads. So, so that's about the online propaganda that. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, yes.
How did they know which districts to target these ads? How did they?
Which districts?
Yeah, which districts, which people? At Facebook, you have to say who your audience is for the ads. How did they know where to target their ads? Did they steal that data too, or did someone tell them?
They collected a lot of information. They sent, Russian people came to United States and traveled many states. First they didn't know which states to target, but then after they came here, they talked to a lot of people and they figured out that they have to target the purple states. So then they focused on the purple states. So it's amazing. It's to detail. I mean, the description is written in details in Robert Mueller's indictment, and it is available online. If you have time, you can read that, and you will see how elaborate this plan was. And it was not just done in 2016. It started in 2014 at the very least. So it's a long time. It's a very well-planned attack. Yes.
So the Mueller indictment talks about the Cambridge Analytica. They also have that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, Cambridge Analytica is a totally different part of it, but yes, it is also linked to Russia. But I didn't say anything about that because I didn't find any information about Cambridge Analytica in Robert Mueller's indictment. These things are already proven and evidence is there, but I didn't find any such report on Cambridge Analytica yet. So that's why, but that's another component. And my guess is that yes, it is also linked to Russia. Yeah. So that's the online propaganda, and one objective of their online propaganda was to increase racial tension in this country and to increase the divisiveness that was already there. And I read in one report that it was already, it is a very old tactic of Putin to create tension and divisiveness in his own country to gain power. So they just used cyber space to launch this type of attack to US. The third thing that they did was they tried to hack state election systems. They scanned at least 21 states' election systems, and at least Illinois' election server, one server was breached, and 90,000 voter registration data was accessed by them, although not altered. This is the very least that we know, but we don't know what else has happened. What we know is that they probably did not change anything. So there is a report published by American CIA. It was actually, that report was compiled by CIA, FBI, and NSA together. So the actual report was highly classified, but in the internet there is a declassified version of that report. In that report, they say that this is going to be a new normal. And I will read from that report. That report was published in January 6, 2017. This hack was done in 2016, and I think I'm proud to say that these American intelligence officials did a great job to publish a report so quickly in January 2017 because I have some experience in digital forensics, and I know that it can be extremely time consuming to collect the digital evidences. When we access any system, we leave trails, we leave footprints, and trained people can collect those footprints, but it is not easy. It takes a long time. And Russians did their best to cover their trails. That's why they bought the server space in US, so that they so they created a VPN channel, you know, virtual private network between their server in Kremlin, St. Petersburg, and their server in US. And they communicated from that server to this server, and then from this server they would launch all the fake news. So their fake social media pages and fake social media accounts were all in this server. Okay, so I will read from, yes. So the report published by CIA, FBI, and NSA, they say that we assess Moscow will apply lessons learned from its campaign aimed at the US presidential election to further influence efforts in the United States and worldwide, including against US allies and their election process. We assess the Russian intelligence services would have seen their election influence campaign as at least a qualified success because of their perceived ability to impact public discussion. We assess Russian intelligence services will continue to develop capabilities to provide Putin with options to use against United States in future elections. So, that was the conclusion, and they said, so that's why I say that this is a new normal. We cannot eliminate internet from our lives, we cannot eliminate digitization from our society, so we have to accept that these are the risks that we face, and we have to think about the solutions, how we can protect our election system. Now, as I said, before 2016 election, we were always focused on critical infrastructures of United States, and if you go to the DHS websites, you will see that there are 16 designated critical infrastructures. There are government facilities, healthcare sectors, and financial sectors. There are 16 such critical sectors. Now, US election system was not included as a critical infrastructure of United States. When President Obama realized that this has happened, he decided to include US electoral process as a critical infrastructure of United States. And so before he left his office, and I'm so thankful to that, he included our election infrastructure as a critical infrastructure. It is under the subcategory of government facilities. However, I also saw a letter signed by Paul Rand, Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid. They wrote in that letter that they oppose this idea of making US election infrastructure as one critical infrastructure, because their logic was that then states will not have enough power on their own election infrastructure, and the federal government will have more power, and they didn't want that. So when I read that letter, I realized that they did not have any clue. They signed that letter sometimes in 2017, and I thought that they still didn't understand the importance of cyber attacks, cybersecurity. So That's sad. But anyway, it is a critical infrastructure now. Okay, now since this is a new normal, how prepared are we for our upcoming midterm election? US voting machines. So there are 4 different types of US voting machines. This is called direct recording equipment, DRE. This one is ballot making device. It has, okay, so this one, you have a user interface where you have that ballot description and you can select your option, and then your vote will be stored in a memory in that system, okay? And it will be counted in that memory itself, in the DRE. On the other hand, this ballot making device, it has the same type of interface, touch screen, so you can give your vote here, but the vote is not stored in the memory like DRE. Instead, the vote is scanned and a paper printout comes out, and the paper printout is taken to a central location for counting. Then there is this thing called optical scanner, where you have a paper ballot and you choose your option, and then you scan it in that optical scanner, and then those scanned papers, the scanned ballots are taken to some central location for counting. And the 4th option is paper ballot. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. Recently I was reading about Georgia. There was a lawsuit
Yes.
District 6.
Yes, yes.
And they say that a professor found
Yes.
the passwords to access the Georgia voter system, and I just started to figure out, if they put all that stuff out there and somebody accesses it, they can go into the system and change votes, right?
I'm going to explain that. Yes, it is possible. And how is it possible? I'm going to explain to that. But thanks for reminding about that lawsuit. Yes, there is a lawsuit that's going on. It was, I forgot which organization.
Coalition for Good Government.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so yes, so one interesting story here I forgot to tell you. So in 2016, when these Russian attackers were scanning the election systems in 21 states, at that same time, one Georgia security researcher, Logan Lamb, he actually found a very serious vulnerability in one of the election servers, and he was able to hack into that system and obtain voter registration data. Yes, that's right. And well, I will talk about the timeline. So that's one thing that we already knew in 2016, before we knew that Russians were trying to do all these things. So there are these 4 types of US voting machines. How is it possible to commit election fraud? How is it possible to change the vote counts? Okay, this is taken from a paper written by Dr. Andrew Apple. He is a Princeton University professor, and this report is available in White House website. He testified in front of Congress about this, how election fraud can happen. So he says that it is possible to write a computer program that will only commit the fraud on election day. So on non-election days, it will accurately count the votes, but on election days, maybe between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., it will cheat. It will add votes to the wrong column. It is possible to write a program like that. Now, voters will not see anything, will not understand anything, nor will pre-election logic and accuracy testing be able to figure out what is going to happen. It is possible to write a program like that. but how to use that program in actual voting machines. One good thing is that the actual voting machines are not directly connected to the internet. But Dr. Apple said in his article that the ballot definition files, the files that have the description of the candidates, that file is used in the voting machine on the election day. Although this is not connected to the internet directly, this ballot definition file is created in a computer called the election management system, and this computer is connected to the internet sometimes. Okay, so it is possible to hack into this computer and somehow change this ballot definition file. Well, not change the ballot definition file, but with the ballot definition file, attach a small program, the program that he described just in the previous slide. It is a small few hundred lines of program, and it is possible to attach that executable file in the ballot definition file. Most of the time, the ballot definition files are PDF files, and it is extremely easy to attach an executable file in a PDF file. People will not know anything, they will not understand anything, but that program will start to execute inside this computer. Voting machine. So with that, let's see what kind of voting machines are used by different states. So from this picture we can see that this dark brown color, that's, oh, I forgot to tell you about VVPAT. So voter verified paper audit trail. That's a machine that can be attached to a DRE, direct recording equipment machine, to create a paper version of the vote that is done in DRE. I forgot to tell you that all these machines, optical scanner, paper ballot, and ballot making device, all of them have paper records of the votes, except DRE, direct recording system.
The one we have in Georgia.
Exactly, yes. So this direct recording equipment does not create a paper trail. So therefore, with a direct recording equipment, DRE, it is impossible to audit. Okay? So, and I'm talking about old DREs, but then new DREs have been produced. So the new DREs come with VVPAT. So there are some states that already have that DREs with VVPAT, but there are 5 states that don't have, that have old DREs that don't come with VVPAT. So therefore, and Georgia is unfortunately one of them. So what is the risk of that? We don't have transparency. We can't audit. We don't know whether the election count was right or wrong.
Why they don't convert those so they can print? Can they convert those into write some kind of upgrade to the program that they can print?
Yeah.
But why they don't do it?
They haven't done it, but it is possible because some vendors they can retrofit VVPATs with old DREs. Yes. But there are different options. One option is that we can equip our old DREs with VVPATs, and it is possible. The other option is to completely change the DREs and have new DREs. DRE is so popular because DRE has good usability. It is easy to vote, and DRE also complies with HAFA Act of 2002, which says that disabled people should be able to vote. So there is this accessibility issue with the voting machines. Yes.
Would you not think that the paper ballot would be the safest?
I think so, yes. But the problem with paper ballot is that it's difficult to count and it's more work for the election officials. So that's why Professor Apple, when he testified in front of White House, that's why he said although paper ballot is the safest option, it will be difficult to promote paper ballot.
My name's Dana Bowers, sorry. But I'm actually doing the petition with Georgia Votes paper to do, you know, to implement paper ballots immediately using the absentee ballot scanners that we already have. And I know that is far better than a DRE too.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, what would you recommend to people if they're in that kind of discussion? Because of course, for me, you know, that is what I say. Paper ballots only.
Yes, I agree. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know about this usability and accessibility thing, but yes, you are right. I mean, paper ballots should not have any issue with accessibility. But again, the problem is that counting will be a huge problem. So that's why election officials may not want to, you know, once we get used to the digitized way of doing things, it is difficult for us to go back to the older ways. But I went to a conference, a cybersecurity conference in June in Huntsville, and one speaker there talked about this, and he recommended to have just a second paper ballot along with the DREs, you know. Yeah, it is more work too, but at least it will be auditable.
I mean, like the ES&S is proposing the like the hybrid, which is the barcode plus a written out piece, so you can see the words of who you voted for. But those aren't how the votes counted, and that's kind of where Georgia's looking at going right now. The votes are actually stored in those barcodes, so they're completely unverifiable, just like the DREs. And the absentee ballots. Not to interrupt you at all, but the absentee ballots, you know, those counters we have count our absentee ballots on a regular basis and are made by the same Diebold company.
Okay.
So yeah, we've actually been able to test them too, and they can handle the volume of any of this easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's great. I mean, yes.
If we can program to block the hacking into the election, given what, a week, they can program to go around that blocking, and then we figure that out, and then a week later they can program to go around that double blocking. How will it ever end? I mean, how will we ever have non-affected elections?
Never. I mean, non-affected, well, it is difficult to say, but the battle is never going to end. It is true. I mean, it is not just with election systems, but with any system connected to the internet. We have this ongoing battle. I mean, technology is evolving, and so are the cyber criminals. They are creating new techniques to get into those secure systems, because no matter how much we try, we cannot produce a system that does not have any vulnerability at all. It is just impossible, because we are imperfect beings and what we do is imperfect. So it is an ongoing battle, and with election system, yes, if you think about it that way, it is never going to end, and it is very difficult to ensure. However, I think that if there is a good audit process in place, then at least we can use that to make sure that our election has been fair. Another thing is that it is not really easy to actually hack into actual systems. It is much more easy to launch a phishing attack and get into somebody's email account. However, it is much more difficult to create exploits and launch attacks in actual systems. That's why Russians scanned the election systems of 21 states, but they could break into only one server. That's because it is not so easy. However, it is possible, and I read when I was reading about our state election system, I actually read somewhere that some Georgian election server uses Windows 2000 operating system, and I was shocked. Is that right?
It's very right, yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
I mean, Windows 2000 is a very old operating system and it has documented vulnerabilities and ready-made exploits up in the internet.
Have you been reading up on the remote access software stuff that's been coming out this week? That now ES&S and Diebold had pushed remote access software since like 2000.
Yeah, there are remote access softwares. I mean, almost all software that we use have some kind of backdoor through which people, the developers who develop that software can actually remotely access that. Yes, it is.
So the person that built the machines, like say, like Diebold, like the company that made them, I heard like the person in charge, what kind of corrupt person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he got caught in some kind of fraud or some kind of fraud.
CEO Tom.
So I just kind of curious, because he's a Republican and he's being caught in problems. He was the one that built the machines. Is this a safe machine after all this history with the maker being a corrupt person that...
I can't say that because I have not looked at these machines myself. I have not.
And then
Why can't you go to the paper and then it goes into the scanner
Yeah.
at the precinct?
Yes.
That scanner has a cartridge. That cartridge is not hackable until you start downloading it to
Right.
the server. So
Right.
if you do that at every precinct, you got paper, you got a cartridge,
Yes.
audit trail like crazy.
Yes.
And in the state I live in, we do that, and those things are, you say, oh, they're hard to count, but they're counted by midnight. 99%
Yes.
is counted by
Yes.
midnight.
Absolutely. Yes.
We
We have.
went to, this is California, we went to all paper. You know, no Diebold in our, so.
Absolutely.
But you scan it and it's counted very quickly.
Exactly. I am going to show that in my next slide.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes. Yes.
Going back to that, the U.S. map, Georgia was not like listed, not on that one, but the one that you showed before, that Georgia was not,
Oh, this one. Yes. Yes.
it's not there on that, but
Yes.
we know the system is hackable, and now I was thinking that in this lawsuit that they launched recently in District 6, they deleted all the the records.
Yes, from KSU, Brian
Right.
did.
So I'm just kind of curious if they've been deleting everything after the elections and we erase all the hard drives, that there's no proof that...
No, there will be still proof. I mean, even if you erase everything from your hard drive, still the digital forensic investigators can retrieve those
They say
deleted
that
But
data.
we can't verify
Not
the
if they
votes on
wipe it.
at all. Like we can say how many ballots are passed and how many voters
Right,
came
but,
in,
yeah,
but we can't
maybe,
say who
yes.
or what they
Yes.
They say they
voted.
erased it 3 times. The hard drive, like they erased it 3 times, and there was in an email saying we did a good job deleting all the data.
I have heard that NSA, yes, NSA has some sort of tool which can be used to retrieve data from a hard drive that has been completely erased 26 times. So they have the tool. So if they want to do this, they can, but I don't know.
And they are.
Yes, yes,
I have sort of a general question.
Yes.
And you may be headed in this direction, but I look at that. I look at the other map you showed us with all of the different systems.
Mhm.
Is the cybersecurity community that's involved in this, do they expect that map to look worse the next election? Or are people thinking, well, they tried it and it's not working so well, so you see what I'm saying? Do they expect more attempts and potentially more breaches the next go round?
Well, my guess is yes. I mean, what I have read and the trend that I see, and also from the report published by CIA, FBI, and NSA, it is highly possible that they will not stop at 2016 election. They will try to use their knowledge to further damage United States.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, and we are confirmed this week that we were a target of Russia. Just Kim hasn't.
Yes, I saw that
admitted,
news, exactly. Yes, I saw that.
And I think some of the more like crucial things at this point, just because people have been asking questions, I'm not meaning to jump in your thing here.
No.
But the method we're using is we just call it stopgap. I'm actually working with the woman who's on that suing in the 6th. So we've been doing we were the ones that kind of went on the news and published the stuff about Habersham and Hall County and wrong ballots and missing races. And so really what we looked at was trying to figure out the best way to kind of solve that problem would be this stopgap implementation of paper ballots before November.
Okay.
And it's actually possible in the most least expensive way
Yes,
too.
exactly.
And,
Yes.
and you know, I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that's kind of a push that we're trying to get out, obviously, which is,
Yes.
yeah, and so if you could, I would love to send that to you too.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of information on it as well, because I really feel like pushing for a DRE system at all, even if it does have a printed ballot receipt, it's still not verifiable at all.
Exactly. Yes. That I'm going to show the next slide actually. So this is the hackability of different voting machines. And this is from Dr. Apple's report. So he said, yes, the worst type of machines are all DREs, you see, and the best ones are optical scanners. Although he doesn't talk about, it is his opinion that paper ballots may be difficult to promote because election officials may not agree. But yeah, but the next best thing to paper ballot would be to use the optical scans as you described. You will just scan and. However, I also read that in some places these optical scanners may be connected to a modem to transfer these scanned votes to a central location for counting, but via the internet. Okay, if that happens, then there is a small chance that it can be hacked. But I think that the chance is remote because in order to hack a machine. If I think about Russians, it will require some time, and I think the little time a modem is connected to a central server just to transfer the votes to a central location, it won't be enough to hack, I think. So I think that's why optical scanners are next best choices to hand paper ballots, but the worst are definitely DREs, and I totally agree that DREs should be completely eliminated. In Canada, they use paper ballot, so if they can do it, why not us?
And Alabama does too.
Oh, Alabama does too? Okay.
Yeah, that's our most southern representative neighbor of voting. If they went to it, we can go to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
Yes.
does Canada use? I didn't understand that.
Paper ballot. They use paper ballot. Yes. They stay away from.
California's gone off paper too,
Okay.
with the Opti-Eagle.
Okay. Okay.
Lydia?
Yes.
But how would this be enforced? Is it up to each state? Can it be federally mandated?
It's actually up to the
Because,
county board of elections.
Each state is going to have perhaps their own reason why they don't want to do it, because it does perform a paper trail. I mean, how would it actually come into effect? Supposing not all 50 states have a paper trail.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, what does that look like? I mean, how does that come about?
Who makes the decision on what kind of machine?
Who will make the decision? I think each state government has power to decide. Yes, it is not up to.
And the county
I think
board
it's
of
county.
elections and the
Yeah.
county commissioner's office actually has an
Okay.
independent authority to authorize that on their
Okay.
own.
It's county.
Yeah, so like if they deem, the DREs to be somehow impractical, they can actually implement it for a single election or have it be continued.
Okay.
So that's actually really cool, is it can drop out of the state and it can be by
Yeah.
county.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes. Yes.
I was listening to GPB radio this week, and there was Major Tomlinson in there, and they were talking about this problem with the machines, and one of the guys, I think, was a Republican or Democrat, and the Republican said that they're not gonna do anything about those machines, that
Yes.
they don't wanna spend the money or,
Yes.
A lot of counties can't afford to stuff their machines and start over. They
Yeah.
can with paper ballots, but.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm coming to the money part here. So here we see that the worst type of voting machine is AccuVote TS, And what does Georgia have? Hacking vote yes. Terrible. Yeah.
Could you explain to me how the AccuVote TS is hackable?
How is it hackable? Okay, okay. So let me explain to you again. So this AccuVote TS, this DRE or any DRE, they are not connected to the internet, so it is difficult for people to access it remotely while the votes are being counted. Okay, but Dr. Apple said that this ballot definition file, this is a digital file. This file this file is taken and to the DRE machine using a memory cartridge. Okay, a small memory device. And there are few ways of malware can be attached to this file. This file is prepared into a computer. It's called the election management system, and this computer is connected to the internet. So the enemy, the attackers, can hack this computer and can access this ballot definition file and can attach this small malware program that can change the vote counting while it is being counted, because it is attached to this ballot definition file. Okay, so although this machine is not directly connected to the internet, that machine, election management system is, and this PDF file can have this secret malware attached to it, and that file can be used to this voting machine, and it can run while the votes are being counted. That's one way of hacking.
Could it be tested though? I mean, wouldn't better procedures eliminate a lot of these problems? Like
That's
not
what
connecting that to the internet, testing the ballot file so that...
Yes, I mean, there are a lot of things that we can do to figure out what is going on. Yes, of course. I mean, that's what, and Andrew said it is possible to write a program that will behave well in non-election days. So, however, I think if we employ a good cybersecurity expert and have the expert go through the ballot definition files, go through a vulnerability assessment of the election management system, it is possible to do a lot of things to prevent these things to happen. You know, yes, there are a lot of options. We are not out of options. Yes.
And I certainly don't want to hijack the discussion.
No, that's okay.
I've been involved in elections for over 20 years. I'm the director of elections here in Columbus and State County. I've been a Georgia election official for over 20 years. That Jim's computer that you talked about, or the election management computer you spoke about, is never connected to the internet. It is never connected to the internet, so nothing can be downloaded on that machine. Secondly, I was here when we used paper ballots. I was the first elections director to implement the optical scan voting equipment, and I loved it.
Okay.
I loved optical scan voting equipment. It's
Okay.
easy. Election officials loved it because you, the voter, you went in, you filled out your form, you put it in the optical scanner, and you're right. We had one cartridge that we had to count that the poll worker had to transmit to the central tabulation center to read, and that's how we counted your vote. We were done 9, 10 o'clock. As it is now, we have 400 and 500 separate memory cards that we have to tabulate on election night. The issues with the paper ballots, and the reason we moved away from that in 2000 and 2001 with that 21st Century Vote Commission, was that paper ballots were changeable also. You know, people could change what was reflected on a paper ballot as they were transported to the central tabulation center, even though we had a cartridge. You could change what was on that paper ballot. If you, the voter, had an overvote on your ballot, meaning you had marked in the contest twice, you had an overvote, that overvote didn't come back to you as the voter to correct it, because the current law didn't allow us to correct it. So in the 2000 presidential election, when we went back and reviewed ballots, there were so many ballots where we could tell what the voter intended, who the voter intended to vote for. But legislatively, we could not count that vote because it was an overvote. and
Yes.
you could not do it. So while we're talking about elections equipment and vulnerabilities of elections equipment, it's not just equipment. It is also the legislative changes that need to go along with it. And I think before we make a knee-jerk reaction of what we need, we're talking about having digitized elections with a receipt. You, the voter, are not going to be able to carry that receipt away with you.
No.
You're going to take that receipt from the ballot marking device and you're going to put it into an optical scanner. A lot of people do not want barcodes on any kind of piece of paper that you read into a scanner. But that scanner has to be able to know if you, the voter, are able to vote for Congressional Districts 3 or Congressional District 8. And without some kind of identifier on that ballot, the scanner's not going to know what it's reading. It's not going to know if it's reading the ballot for 3 or reading the ballot for 8. And so there are a lot of things that go into the discussion when you talk about equipment and vulnerabilities and legislatively being able to protect your vote. And it's not just the weaknesses of the equipment. You need to know also that parallel testing goes on election day. You talk about software that only functions between the hours of 8 and 5 on election day. But if there's parallel testing going on in an elections office or in the state, that parallel testing is the same data and the same software that's in the equipment that's in the polls. And someone is testing that parallel on election day to ensure that there is no secret sleeping malware that will affect that vote on election day. And last, and then I'll be quiet, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
There's also a national certification for election software. Companies don't just come up with equipment or software and say how they want it to function. There is a national certification process that equipment and software for voting, because again, our vote is important, that these companies have to go through and get certified. I know Georgia is looking at something else because obviously our equipment is 17 years old and it's reaching the point where something's going to need to be done. It was $54 million statewide to replace that equipment in 2001. We're looking at $100 million probably to have some kind of difference here in our state as far as our equipment. But what it's going to be, I don't believe anyone knows what that picture is. Because you don't know if you want to go with paper, which is going back to 2000, or if you want to move forward with some kind of
In-between
electronic
options,
and paper.
yeah.
Right, so because you have your disability community who enjoys being able to cast their ballot independently. I'm sorry,
No, thank you very much, and I really appreciate your remarks. I didn't know about those things. That's extremely valuable for information for me. Yes, and I forgot about that undervote, overvote thing. That's one reason that DRE was implemented. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, so.
That doesn't matter. I'm sorry, I am so passionate about this subject, and I just have to say that there is a very well planned method to implement paper ballots for us here in Georgia. We can do it before November. It does not have to be approved by the state. We can do it through local county boards of elections and the county commissioner's office. They have the independent authority to do this. I think the only thing that we should be recommending at this point is paper ballots. Any discussion on those machines, I am so terrified myself that this is going to be the end of what we know as democracy if we don't actually just...
How can we help that come about? All of us here, I think, are somewhat in the quote activist role.
So we're...
comments about that. So we have a statewide voting system. It's
Can't
not up
hear
to the
her.
counties and municipalities. It's the state
No,
legislature
we've been
that
through
would have to
our
change
attorneys,
that.
and it
Exactly.
is very possible.
It's the state legislature that would have to change.
We don't have to change a single word in the law. It's already written in the law. Like we are able to do it on, if we have a mass power outage on election day, we have to be able to still, and we even have the printers to print the paper ballots, to still do that if we just drop off the grid on election day. I mean, these are things that we already have in the state. We are not utilizing them outside of counting absentee ballots, and we are so much at risk right now. We've had, I guess the only reason why I am just kind of freaking out about it is we've had a huge week this week in realizing what's going on. We've exposed that here in Georgia, we've had people that have voted on wrong ballots. We have races that were left off these DRE tapes. Those are the results tapes. We can't verify these machines at all on anything to say that you voted for something. You were either just a number of a person that's there, or it is just the ballot count. We cannot verify if that vote actually counts at all, nor can we verify if it makes it to the state database. So it's really important, especially for Georgia now too, because we're implemented now in the Mueller indictment as well. So yeah, please keep your minds open about paper ballots. I'm going to stop taking over her wonderful meeting because I'm a crazy person. But we are Georgia Votes Paper. We have a statewide
Can I just ask
petition.
a couple of questions?
So-
I couldn't understand what the woman in the back was saying. So I'm sort of lost in this. I'm concerned, you keep talking about how we can do it at the county level. There are 159 counties in
We
Georgia.
know it's huge.
That doesn't make me feel at all better.
No, but see, because they have the independent authority, really all it takes is like one. So if we can do one county, which we've got some good options looking into like Stevens and Morgan
I
county.
don't want one county in 2019.
I know, I want all 159
I mean, let's
too.
talk about something that's going to make a real difference.
Well, our plan is, we have a statewide implementation plan. It's called,
Who are you with?
I am with Georgia Votes Paper. I am with, I work with people from Georgia Tech on the machines for research. This is something that I just, dove into.
Would
Say that more loudly.
conversation
Everybody ought to
after
find
Lydia's
Georgia
finished?
Votes
Yeah.
Paper.
Can we move on and just see what
Yeah.
Let her finish her
Tell
presentation.
us about it.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm sorry?
Tell us, you go to GeorgiaVotesPaper.org?
Yes. Well, actually, it's right now. We're building our website and finishing it tonight. Actually, so we're on Facebook. So you can find us at Georgia Votes Paper on Facebook.
Does anybody else know of
We'll
a
put
group
the
as
information out
actively
on our
involved
Facebook
in
page.
this?
When we get it, we'll put all the information out on our Facebook page. Go ahead.
She needs to
Lydia.
finish.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know much about the legislation part of this. So yeah, I will love to learn from you all about that aspect of the problem. But I learned that, I read several reports in Washington Post and New York Times, and the journalists say that we have to have legislative changes in order to change those voting machines. But I don't know for sure, so you all can tell me. But what we know is that the current voting machine of Georgia is a terrible one, and even if it is not hackable, we cannot have any audit. So we don't know. We will not be able to figure out whether this election was fair or not without any paper trail. Okay, so audit is very important. Another report I remember reading is that one company who make elections voting software and who distribute voting software to 8 states got phishing email, spear phishing email. So although again, I think the employees who got the spear phishing email, they were able to figure it out and nothing happened, but it is a threat. It is a realistic threat. So the timeline, January 2017, the Russian attack was confirmed by US intelligence, and the report that I read was published in January 6, 2017. So we already knew, because that report clearly says that Russians were behind this attack and these things happened. There were digital evidences. And then in October of 2017, we got the first indictment of Robert Mueller. And then in March 2018, after several months after Robert Mueller's indictment, the federal government secured a bill to spend $380 million for cybersecurity, actually for securing election process. However, the experts say that this is not even enough. Okay, some experts say that we need about 1.25 billions of dollars spent over 10 years. This is not a one-year process because technology is evolving very fast, and our enemies are on the lookout for vulnerabilities that are coming up every single day. So therefore, it is not enough to focus on cybersecurity only on 2018 and not on 2019 or 2020. But that's where we are now. And after, in March 2018, $380 million was sanctioned by government. Only by May 2018, only 13 states requested grants of $88 million. And I read in that report that many other states were trying to change their legislation before they would request for that grant. Okay, Georgia was not one of those 13 states. I read that only recently on July 10, 2018, there was an article in my agency that Georgia secured $10.3 million grant for securing its securing its election process, and the grant proposal. In that grant proposal, there was a plan of spending some amount of this money to change the voting machines. Brian King, he's the Secretary of State, right? So he created an 18-person election commission, safe, secured and fair election commission, and those officials in SAFE, they created this proposal and they secured $10.3 million grant, and it is already July, end of July, and our election is in November, right? So there is very little time. Although I think, I personally think it is doable, because I also read that in state of Virginia, they have changed all their voting machines in, I think in few weeks of time. So if it is given a priority, it can be done. But the way things moved so slowly, we got to know in January that Russians did launch this attack, but only the next year, 2018, the government secured this bill, but that too a small amount. So, so that's that. I don't know how we can expedite this process. So how can we protect our election process from cyber attack? I'm focusing on cyber attack only. We can do a lot of things. We need to have some international effort to create some common treaties or laws with all different countries, or maybe some of the main countries. Something like, we will not allow certain behaviors in cyberspace when it comes to election process. And President Obama did try to do that, to have some treaties like that, and I think, as far as I remember, he did go for one treaty, but then after that, this 2016 election, hack happened, and so before leaving the office, President Obama actually said that he realized how difficult it is. Actually, he said that such treaties are ineffective when it comes to prevent cyber attacks, and one reason behind that is that the other nation-state actors like Russia, China, or Iran, they don't embody the same values that United States does. So that's one thing. So, but there is something, some work has to be done on international level. Then on federal level, a lot of things can be done. One thing is to treat election system as a very critical system and sanction bills, provide money to upgrade systems, and employ a lot of cybersecurity experts. And then at state levels, we can have similar actions. Corporate level, we can have, the corporate agencies can train their employees to be aware of cybersecurity attacks, different types of attacks. And then we also have some individual actions. When we look at what happened in 2016, we see that lack of knowledge and lack of awareness played a huge role. So there are a few things that we can do at individual level. If you run a campaign, you must use a website. So you can strengthen security to help ensure that voters can visit your website, that your website is not subject to a denial of service attack. If you are a candidate, then you need to add extra security to your account. And I'm going to talk about the techniques that you can use easily. If you run a site with election information, then you have to protect your website from denial of service attacks so that voters can access the right amount of information when they need it. If you run a news site, you protect your election coverage and debate from digital attacks and online trolls. And you can find tools to encourage accurate reporting and quality journalism. And if you are a journalist, you need to increase your security of your own account to keep your information safe. And you can use the fact-checking. One good news is that Google, after what happened in 2016, came up with wonderful free tools with which you can do all of this. So there is Google's advanced protection, which you can use. It employs two-factor authentication. So even if you become a victim of a spear phishing attack like John Podesta did, and even if the attacker gets your username and password, the attacker will not be able to access your account because he will need another factor in order to authenticate. So that's the beauty of two-factor authentication, and you can do it with Google's advanced protection. You can protect your website with technology called Project Shield. This is also based on Google platform, and if you build your website with that, then there will be continuous monitoring to the traffic to your website, so denial of service attacks could be identified and prevented. And then finally, Google is creating this is a new tool and they are still working on it. This is called Perspective. So this tool's goal is to separate out the insulting and offensive comments. So basically keeping the trolls away from interfering with civil conversation. So this type of this type of comments will be monitored by Perspective and will be deleted from the conversation. So Perspective is still being improved. So if you use Perspective, the developers say that we can send them recommendations so that they can improve their tool furthermore. But this is a wonderful tool to keep away, to protect our conversation from trolls. And then finally, we can continue to demand voting security, election transparency, election audits, and fact-based campaign to our representatives. Okay, and the more in number we are, the stronger is our voice, and the more we will be heard. So we need to do it collectively together to continuously demand voting security, okay, and transparency. Very important. I will say that we must encourage people to vote regardless of what our systems are. Voting is really important, and people should not be deterred from voting just because there may be cyber attacks. Okay, we still need to go out and vote. It's really important. The last thing that I want to say is that when we learned about this DNC hack, we realized how important cybersecurity awareness is. Just to be aware that I can be a victim of phishing attack, just to be aware that my passwords are important to protect my information is very important, and a lot of people lacked that. So around spring of 2016, my colleague Dr. Yeshem Pikar and I started to work on this project, the Cybersecurity Awareness Project, It is available in our website, system.columbustate.edu, where we focus on 5 basic things that everyday users of internet has to deal with: passwords, social engineering, browser security, mobile security, because we all use smartphones, and then malware. So we have interactive lessons. These are very easy to use, and these are for everybody. We have used this in our students, and we have seen a statistically significant raise in cybersecurity awareness after they did all these modules. Okay, so this is one thing that we are doing. And I think that I'm forgetting something. I think that's it. I don't remember anything else to say, but that's all I had to say. So if you have any question or anything to tell me, let me know.
I have a question.
Yes.
I read about Estonia, not about this attack, but I had read that they are impervious to attacks because they don't have a central collection, that every individual person uses their computer for everything. They vote by computer, they do everything because it's so spread out and non-centralized. Is that something that got them in trouble with the Russians when they had that attack?
I don't exactly understand what you mean by spreading out. I mean, I don't know about their systems.
I'll find the article and I'll forward it to you.
Okay, yeah, that will be great. Then it will be easier for me to understand.
Yeah, okay.
But the way I understand the way the internet works, any system that is connected to the internet has this threat of denial of service attack, and any server is, unless there is some traffic monitoring system, denial of service attack is done in such a way that any server can be shut down by saying yes.
What happened in Atlanta? I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, there was a ransomware attack. So someone, again, the phishing email attack was behind that. So I guess some employee got a phishing email attack. There was a malware attached to it, ransomware, and the ransomware, you know how ransomware works? If it gets installed in your system, then it shuts down your system until you provide some money to someone, or until you do something that they want you to do. The system will be shut down. Actually, what they do is they encrypt the system. They actually encrypt the master boot record of a computer, the first sector of a hard drive, and the first code that needs to run when we start a computer gets encrypted, and it's not readable by, and so therefore the code doesn't run, the system is shut down, and the key for the decryption is only known to the attacker, and they would give us the key only if we conform to their demand. So that's what happened in Atlanta office, and I think as far as I remember, it was a few months back, right? So they did not agree to do something that the attackers want them to do, and so therefore the systems were shut down for several weeks. And I don't know what happened.
The Atlanta
City Council, yes, the City Council's office. Yes.
But you couldn't pay your water bill. There are lots of different things that you just couldn't.
Right,
change
exactly.
Well,
Yeah, you couldn't do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
What's the chance that Facebook and Twitter can shut down all the bots by November? Can they
Shut down all the bots?
Yeah. Can they do it, or will they do it? All the Russian bots on Facebook or Twitter, all the accounts from Russia.
I think it is possible if they have a efficient algorithm to identify the bots, then yes, they can shut down. However,
You can create new ones though as fast
yes,
as they can
exactly.
shut them down. That's
they
pointless.
can always create new ones. So it's
Waste of
difficult. Yeah. But what we can do is we can be aware of what bots try to do, and we can actually, that's why this fact check is so important. So these trolls, they try to spread fake news mainly, and they try to interrupt with the civil conversation and to disrupt and create insulting remarks. So that's why I said if we use perspective, Facebook can use the tool perspective to filter out the insulting comments, and regardless of whoever did it, a bot or a real person, they can actually block those comments. Yes.
You said that the state of Georgia got $10 million roughly from the federal government.
Yes.
She said it takes $100 million to replace our system. Is the state of Georgia putting any money, or is that all we have? That doesn't seem like
That's all we have, and even this was not easy to do, because I read reports that Secretary of State Brian Kemp initially did not want to have any money to change the election systems at all.
Yeah, he refused.
So yeah, he refused it initially, yes. But then finally he agreed. Of course, $10.3 million is most likely not enough. If $380 million is not enough for all the states, then $10.3 million is not enough for Georgia.
Was the money to replace machines or to make the security better?
They said, I only got one report published in my agency, and the report says that the grant proposal has one way of spending money on cybersecurity, but there are other things on which they try to spend the money. So I don't know, it doesn't detail. So I don't know, you may have more information on that, Dana.
Well, I mean, that I actually don't, just on a cybersecurity aspect, because I'm, on election integrity side too. So really there's just, Brian Kemp's in a lot of litigation at this point over things that have happened with the election. And yeah, he's refused to acknowledge, the attempts of Russia interference, and, the possibilities are there. And so he's pretty much not wanting to talk about it, fix it, and he did not want to accept money originally. I think he just got a little bit of pressure put on him now of why he did it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, now I remember another incident. I think it was the researcher Logan Lamb or someone else who hacked into one election server, and along with other voter registration data, he also accessed a PDF file that had username and passwords of election officials. With that information, username and password, anybody can actually go and log onto the systems, the express poll books that are used to verify the voter records before the election, and they can change those records. And if that is done, then some legitimate voters may not be able to even vote if their records are changed, because their eligibility is verified with the poll book. So that's another thing. So there are different types of threats. It's not just changing the vote counts, but there are vote suppression, preventing voters to cast their vote, influencing their opinion, and all kinds of things can happen. And cybersecurity is, yes.
Don't you think a cyber attack might do a lot of other things, like might destroy the supply lines to grocery stores, and shut off water and electricity and communications?
Definitely, that is possible. That's what I said, that those types of attacks were already anticipated. This was unprecedented and unanticipated, basically. I
personally have to go to the grocery store like twice a week.
Okay.
So if the supply lines were shut down, I wouldn't last very long.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Going back to that lawsuit again, I think what the professor found was on open source, found the password and that information and the voter data, and that's how we know he can get into the system. But at the same time, after he hacked into the system with the information, the Georgia tried to pass a legislation that they are going to punish the person that try to go into the system, or even though you are in a school and you're
Yes.
And even though they turn it down, we was like, it's kind of curious why they're trying to try to get in jail the person that's trying to prove that the system is
Yes,
hacking the person.
yes, I read that too, and I didn't understand that either. I mean, yeah, I'm supposed to come at 16.
Yeah, great, good. Because Logan Lamb will be there. So, yeah, so anyone could watch him and her together on a live stream on the 6th. So August 6th, live stream, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.